you got the train.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank you for attending this month's Chelsea Chamber Community Outreach Meeting. We have the pleasure today of having the United States Department of Transportation Federal Railroad Administration with us today. We have Judy Page and Norma Griffiths. They're here to present to us just all things that are railroad safety. If you've been a long-time resident of Chelsea, as you know, the train horns and just the train has been just synonymous with Chelsea. So we feel that it's super important for us to have a conversation and just address some safety concerns and have more information about really what's been impactful in Chelsea and been a part of Chelsea for as long as I can remember. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Judy and to Norma, who have a brief presentation, and then we'll have a Q&A session afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So again, we're here to address your community on rail safety. This happens to be Rail Safety Week. We are referring to it as See Tracks Think Train Week. And what brought us to your community is we had a couple of calls from concerned engineers coming through your community on commuter rail that they had some near misses ever since the school year began. So it got elevated up to the federal level, and they asked that we would come in and address the community. So we kind of created our pet projects this week for Rail Safety Week, C-Track Trains, to hit as many of your community programs and so forth. And along with your police department and their support, we've been able to get into the high school. We'll be going to the elementary school at the end of the week, and then we're here to discuss this with you because it is such a concerning situation. So we do have a video that we're going to lead off with, and I'm going to turn the floor over to Norma. She'll take over the presentation. And if you have any questions, though, it's a very relaxed format. We have a few PowerPoint presentations that we're going to go through, or slides, I should say. And but we're really here to answer your questions and educate you. So we'll let you take the lead if there's any questions that come up during the presentation. All right. Thank you so much.
So as part of our job, we are volunteers for Operation Lifesaver. I think Judy and I were both involved with Operation Lifesaver with our jobs at the railroad before we became part of the Federal Railroad Administration. And Operation Lifesaver is a nationwide volunteer organization that's been around since 1972. And the statistics have come down since the beginning of Operation Lifesaver as far as deaths related to rail. We're going to show you a video. It's very emotional and it's very impactful. But I think after you see this, you're going to understand even more why we're here. One is too many, and one teenager or child is definitely one too many.
It was a Friday night, November 2013. Typical Friday night. In fact, I actually dropped him off at his friend's house, which is about 3 or 4 blocks from the house. Usually the typical process is around 11 o'clock, we send him a text saying, hey, do you need a ride home? And 11:20, I sent him the text, and he's like, no, Dad, it's okay, I'm getting my ride home, so that's fine. So we went to bed, we woke up, and he wasn't there. And then it was one of his best friends, actually, that they called me and said there's a train accident. Probably one of the worst moments of your life when you all stand together and you realize that Michael's not coming home. The impact, you're not even thinking about the impact, you're just feeling about how empty you feel at that point in time.
It was just a regular night. I was actually on patrol in my vehicle, and the call came over the radio from our dispatch. And whenever that call comes in, it's gut-wrenching. Your heart drops. Your feelings just spike through the roof. Now, unfortunately, because of the nature of the investigation, I had to watch that horrific incident. And it got to me. I'm not going to lie. It did affect me. It affected me mentally and it affected me emotionally to see Michael lose his life. Afterwards, when you actually sit down and the magnitude of the situation hits you, that's when the emotions really, really get to you. A young kid lost her life. Now, I'm a father of two. They're young, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, but that makes me think of them first.
So I have learned from some other kids that I've talked to in the past, it's not uncommon for kids to think that they can just cross that track. You know, lights down, rails down, trains down the road. My understanding from the different people I've talked to is that he actually got his foot caught and he got trapped at that time, and the train actually hit him. These are things that you don't even have to think about. When there's a red light and when there's a rail gate that's down, everybody's done the thinking for you. Just abide by it. Just stop, stay, let the train go by.
Michael lost his life that night because he made a split-second decision to try to beat the train. And if he just waited that extra second and let the train pass by, he'd still be with us today.
OLI.org has many resources that are available to anyone in the community that does safety outreach. They're there, they're free. We are always looking to try to find school resource officers, police officers, firefighters, people generally in the community that know others in the community that will listen to them and respect them, to volunteer as Operation Lifesaver authorized volunteers. You only have to do 2 presentations a year to join the group of volunteers that are out there trying to stop these tragedies that occur. I'm getting old. I can't see.
Ship has sailed. Getting that happened to me quite a few years ago.
Doesn't like me today. There we go, Sludge. So, it's Judy and I in Massachusetts, and soon you're going to see Judy and not Norma.
You can't see me now.
She's in training and she's almost done. I'm going back to Maine then. Well, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont. So we are obviously volunteers for this group. And unfortunately, this sort of thing happens every day in the United States. Every 3 hours, someone is struck and killed by a train. So 8 to 9 people are killed needlessly by a train. So this just happened in Massachusetts. A guy was jogging on a bridge trestle and was killed. We've had people this morning that were killed by a train here in Massachusetts. Judy and I do after actions. So every single fatality, we follow up to see what is it that happened here, how can we try to avoid this. We're trying to preempt that in Chelsea. We just don't, you know, what we're hearing from the engineers, they're scared to death. Probably a bad use of the word, but they really are frightened that something bad is going to happen. So we went to the high school, and surprisingly, the kids listened to us. I didn't think that was going to happen. I just figured they, you know how kids are these days. But they listened. They really were very engaged. I was very surprised. Lollipops up. So anytime is train time. People say, well, do trains follow a schedule? Well, yeah, they run a schedule, but things happen out there. And it might be 5 minutes late, or a minute late, or, you know, even an hour late. So you should always expect a train on any track in any direction at any time. Tracks are for trains, not for people. And so many people think, well, why do they just, you know, swerve to miss me? Trains go down tracks. Okay? They don't have steering wheels. Okay? Okay, the only thing a train engineer can do is to put a train into emergency braking, which is a very dangerous thing to do to a train. Passenger trains are rigid. They are put together so that they don't snap apart, but freight trains are giant slinkies. They do this all the way down the track, right? And they're designed to come off their wheel set when there's an incident. So the last thing that you want is hazmats spilled all over your city, because of something that can be completely avoided. They don't have steering wheels, they can't stop, they can only go down the track. So, just a guess, how long does a train take to stop? Any idea? If you know.
Distance-wise.
A mile or more, generally. The commuter trains that you have here don't take quite a mile, but generally speaking, if they can see you, they can't stop in time to miss you. They can only put a train into emergency braking only. Okay? So that engineer gets to see the whole thing. That is not what the engineer came to work to do. Okay? So a car takes about 200 feet at 55 miles an hour on flat dry surface to stop. And how many flat dry surfaces do we have in New England? Right? A school bus is about 230. Trailer truck is about 300. Light rail, 600. Your commuter trains here are not light rail. And there comes the loaded freight train, 5,280 feet, 100 cars. So when I do presentations at schools, I generally go out and find something that's 5,280 feet from the school. And that does get kids' attention, especially if they're 15, 16, starting to drive, and they realize how far away, because that's how long it takes to stop. If they're coming down the track and you're there, when they can finally see you, they are not stopping in time if you are stuck on the track or in your vehicle or whatever, the emergency is. Yes, sir?
Is 55 a typical speed for trains?
Not typical.
No.
No. I mean, the commuter trains can go almost 80 miles an hour, 79 miles an hour in certain areas. And the freight trains run between 30 and 45 miles an hour, again, depending on the crossings of the area. So you really don't know if there's work being done on the track. They might reduce speed to 10 or 15 miles an hour for freight. But the commuter trains tend to stay in that 40 mile or better going through communities.
Do you think people think that it's going so slow there's no way?
It's an optical illusion, which we'll talk about.
It's sort of, yeah.
I live near the airport, and it looks like those planes are going really slow too, and they fly over my head, and they're not.
True.
About 200 miles an hour when they're coming in, so, yeah.
You mentioned that you like to give the kids a reference of the distance from
I tried
high
to.
school. What was
18 football fields is a great reference, because they know how long a football field is,
And
so put 18 of those up
And
there.
Chelsea is what, about 2 square miles, right?
Yeah.
So think
Half the
about 1
distance of the
mile,
city.
that's half the distance of the city for a train to stop.
And commuter rail trains can stop in shorter distances, not to mislead you. But you don't know if it's going to be a freight train or a commuter rail train. So, you always want to be prepared.
Hard to tell.
So, trains are very heavy. But the same thing as running over a soda can with your car, unload a freight train, hitting your car. That's a real picture. That really happened. 12 million pounds versus 3,000 pounds. Train always wins. Always. 4,000 to 1 weight ratio. That's a lot. So what happens when your car stalls? Anybody got any idea?
Get out.
Get out in what?
Walk away, get away from it.
In what direction? If there's a train coming, what direction do you go?
Towards the train.
Towards the train.
Yeah.
Every fiber of your being is going to say, run away. but you run at the very large thing coming at you in a 45-degree angle. Do we know why?
So they can see you?
No.
Whatever they hit's gonna go forward.
There you have it. You will be part of the debris field, okay? Last thing you want is your car parts coming at you, right? So you run, get out, get away from the tracks. Even if you don't see a train, get away. Your car can be replaced. You cannot. So locate the blue and white ENS sign, emergency notification system sign. Every crossing in the United States should have one of these, and it has a unique identifier, 6 numbers and a letter, that are unique to that crossing. And we did this because you would have, for instance, in this town, you might have a Cherry Street, Cherry Boulevard, Cherry Avenue, and what was happening was emergency services were sent to the wrong location. So by developing this number system, each crossing has its own unique identifier. And in big cities where these sort of things can happen, you will have your own, own emergency notification number or DOT number that identifies your crossing. So, if it's approaching, run toward the train but away from the tracks, okay? At a 45-degree angle. How did I know this? I haven't done one of these in a while. So, this number, that's not XXX, but the number that's at the crossing that you are at, goes directly to the dispatcher for trains on that track. And I know we've all been told and taught 911 is your best bet. But in this instance, it goes directly to the person controlling the train movements, right? So they can get in touch with the train, tell them to stop or slow the movement of a train, or tell you, you better get out of the way very quickly. And then they can help you get 911 services there. But you can't do that if you're dead, right? So calling that number is your best bet.
And we have 4 different railroads that operate just in this kind of area of Massachusetts. Keolis has a north and a south. There are 2 freight railroads as well. One is out in the air area, that's the Bear Railroad, and the CSX Railroad runs straight through here. So at any crossing, it could be one or the other railroad that's responsible for that crossing. That's why you want to go to that 800 number. It will get you to the right dispatch center to stop the train traffic on that specific track.
And the reason this exists is because those sorts of incidents have happened where they've called the wrong railroad. I worked for a railroad up in Maine, and there was an incident inside a Dead River plant. This is a real incident, and I'm taking off my OL hat, putting on my FRA hat. Judy's Railroad was called in Billerica. And they told it that the people that trains were stopped, and so Vanguard Fire's out there with their hoses. And here comes the B&A train down the track, right over it, broke it into 4'8", 4'6" pieces for them.
They called the wrong railroad, and they didn't have the DOT.
So
That's good information, because we go to traffic all the time, and we have dispatch all the time, contact the T, tell them to stop the trains.
I explained that
Okay,
earlier.
but what do they contact? And they call just a general T number or whatever, maybe.
Exactly.
If we call that ourselves,
Yeah, we have a stop the train hotline button,
yes.
but that only goes to the OCC for transit.
Right.
Is there any chance that we could get a collection of those numbers and track addresses for
Absolutely.
dispatch?
it's
There's
right on
actually,
your
the
phone.
FRA has an app.
Really?
And you can go right to the app, it'll take you to the grade crossing that you're at, and it will give you the emergency number right there as well. It can be downloaded.
Yeah.
This is what it looks like.
And it's kept current, so if anything changes.
Google Play Store, you can download it, and you can download it for free. And you can get the whole inventory of the crossing right there. Everything you didn't want to know about a crossing is right there. Accident history, all of it. So if you're trying to design routes as emergency services, you probably don't want to design a route through a quiet zone. You don't want to take your apparatuses where there's no train horn, if you can avoid that. So this can help you design routes and emergency services. Where you take your school buses, if you can avoid that. So this app is invaluable to people trying to...
Stuck on the railroad crossing? Get out of your vehicle. For help, call the number on the blue and white emergency notification system sign at the crossing. Give them the crossing number to alert train traffic. Remember, find the blue and white to save your life.
That got your attention. So probably in Chelsea, you don't have a lot of passive crossings. I'm assuming that most here have active warning devices.
Yes.
But you drive other places, and there's a lot of places that do not have active warning devices. And in that case, you see this, the advanced warning sign, we call it the popsicle. That means that the railroad tracks are ahead, right? And you see the pavement markings next to the popsicle. That's another warning. And you see that you don't pass anywhere in the zone within 100 feet of the crossing. And what are you doing? When you see that popsicle, what do you start to do as a driver?
Go faster.
That's what they do. No doubt. But you're looking in both directions to see if there's a train coming, because trains push, they pull, they go in both directions, right? So you're always looking ahead to see if there's a train coming. It doesn't have flashing lights and gates. All you have is the crosswalk sign. And what is a crosswalk sign?
The one.
It's a legal yield sign, right? I know no one knows what a yield sign means, but it means yield the right of way to an oncoming train, right? So if the train hits you, whose fault is it? Yours. There we go. A painted line identifies a safe place to stop. And we were in Cambridge today, trying to work on a situation where a bus got the gate come down on them because they were inching and inching and inching, and the brush is out there this time of year and they couldn't see. So they got themselves into a situation where they were too close to the train tracks for when the gate came down. So basically, what is a railroad crossing in a city? What is it in highway terms? Anybody? It's an intersection, right? No different than any other intersection except the big things coming down the track. And oftentimes you have lights and gates, or sometimes you might have it preempted with the traffic signals, and they're all tied together. So it's a legal intersection, just like any other intersection. So the flashing lights are basically, it's closing the intersection. It means stop here. Do people? A lot of times when there's no gates, they don't. They blast right through, right? So you proceed only when it is safe to do so. What's this about? What's that telling you? Anybody know?
So like 3 lanes of traffic,
There's 3 crossings. There's 3 different tracks there. And you have this situation in this city with double tracks. And guess what's happening? Anybody? The train goes by. They see the rear end of the train. The kids are crossing behind the rear end of the train with the gates partially deployed.
In our tracks too, there's always 2 trains passing at the same time.
And that's what's going to get
in the morning.
I was in East Corinth, Maine, where I grew up, doing a hunter safety course. And there was a kid from down here in the Boston area, Dorchester area. And he said, after I did the class, he said, "Ma'am, can I talk to you after this class?" And I could tell he wasn't from the area. And he came up and he said, "You know, I have 2 friends that would still be alive if they had this presentation about the 2 tracks." He said, "That's what got my friends, because they passed behind the train and the second train hit them." That's why we're here today. That's what's going on in Chelsea. And my heart just, every time I hear it, I just so do not want to see a child or an adult, anybody, in that situation become a statistic.
And in talking to the kids at the high school, when they see the train stopped at the train depot, they assume that that's the train that's setting off the signal. And so they cut into the gates thinking, oh, the train's over there, I can see that stopped. They're not paying attention, to the fact that another
And plus they
train.
all have
The earbuds are a big
earbuds
thing.
on.
Earbuds
That's
are
all we
big.
had, someone, a high school student died about 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Walked right, broad daylight, beautiful day, everybody stopped, she wasn't paying attention, walked right across,
Yeah.
and got hit by
Yeah.
a train.
And
And we
now,
started doing blitzes up here.
and now because it's not the clickety-clack railroad that it used to be, because it's all welded rail, you just don't even hear the trains
you don't.
coming
I can
anymore. Back
attest
in the
to that.
day, you would hear that clickety-clack sound.
And if the
but-
snow, it's even worse, you can't hear it at all.
I see it, even less visible.
So gates and lights close the road temporarily while the train is going through. And you only cross when the gates are up completely. And that's what we need to emphasize with the kids, completely. And if you go to, I'm sure as police officers can attest to, they go under the half-deployed gates all the time. You don't know if there's a second train coming. And the lights have to be stopped flashing. Today, we were in a different city, the whole track team from town. The gates were, we did. The gates are half deployed, the lights are still on, and they're running.
Double track.
I might have yelled at a few people today. I don't want to see that. Nobody wants to see that, Young men out there in the prime of their life having a great time, and there was a woman trapped in between the gates, and she didn't know what to do.
And she was walking, and she stopped, the gates came down around her, and Wilmer and I were in the car, and we're like, come on, and she was just standing there going.
I started blowing the horn so she would realize, get out of there.
And then we just happened upon this, so how many times does it happen in a day, right? We just happen to be driving down the street.
And there it was, right in front of us. So, we're doing our best to get out there and educate people in the communities, but we can't be everywhere all the time. We need help.
That's why we need people to get involved with Operation Lifesaver. We'll support any way we can for that to happen in the communities.
Can you elaborate what Operation Lifesaver is for everybody in the room?
Sure, absolutely. No.
Yeah, we're a nationwide volunteer organization that does free rail education. All these materials, except the ones that are FRA, that are on the table, are produced by Operation Lifesaver or a railroad safety partner. And it's all about just what we're showing you here today in written format, trying to educate all the different groups. We go and talk to firefighters, we talk to police officers, we have a special course called RISC, Rail Investigation Safety Course. We have that for police officers and firefighters. We have classes for K through 12. They're all broken up for age groups. We bring coloring books and activity books with us if the organization has those things. We would talk to hunter safety classes because hunters go out and they cross the tracks all the time. Sometimes they use the tracks as shortcuts. Fishermen, same thing. ATV clubs, snowmobile clubs. You name it, we've got pretty much a canned presentation that we can come and bring to your organization. We're constantly looking for volunteers because it's harder and harder to find volunteers in today's day and age. Everybody is so busy. So if you, go ahead.
I'm sorry, one last question. Have you left any of these materials at the local hotels that actually are around that particular
That's a
station?
good idea. That is a good idea.
We actually
I just
have
stayed at one.
a board member that runs 2 of the hotels in that immediate area out of the 3, and I'm wondering if we should approach the property managers to leave some of your literature there for the guests.
Great idea. Great idea.
I'm sure we do that.
We do that sometimes in more rural areas with ATVs and snowmobilers, that come for the season. So I think that's a fantastic idea.
Thank you.
So you just saw that video, they driving around the lower gates. Happens all the time. All the time. So we just talked about this. Now you're going to see it for real.
So the gate didn't come all the way down?
And then go back up.
It's common here, the gate goes down, it goes right back up,
You can.
then it comes right back
Back
down.
down.
But the lights are flashing the whole entire time?
But
Mhm.
problem
they
is
ignore the lights.
The minute they see the gates half up, they walk across and the gate comes right back down.
And this is what we were trying to bring home to the kids at the school, that this can happen, this very thing.
Yes.
Isn't that inconsistency like confusing for a few people? So for example, like if I see it going up, even though the lights are on, I'm assuming it's not gonna come through. But if I go to a different city and that happens, like people already know like there's gonna be another train coming. They're already used to seeing a different pattern than what we're used to.
Well, you do bring up a good point, because people become complacent when they know their community,
Yeah.
right? And they don't really think as closely as, but it is,
That's
it's
what the
happening
two is
all the
all
time. Like
about.
Norma was saying, they don't run on a schedule, so it might have happened this way today. There's nowhere that it's that consistent, that it's gonna become commonplace,
Yeah.
that they're gonna do that every time. Because the trains are never that in sync. As much as we'd like them to be in the industry, sometimes they are not.
You know, and there are times that people will go out and they'll say, well, I know that the train already went by, you know, but that doesn't mean that there's not an unscheduled movement of a train that's going to come through, you know. So walking out on the train tracks, just because you think the train went by, does not mean that there's not another train coming. And that's happened numerous times in Massachusetts, where people had made assumptions like that, because they thought they knew the train schedule.
And Keolis can send a ghost train just because they want to check the line or something, say there was, you know, very hot day, they want to make sure there's no imperfections in the rail or whatever, they might just send either a, you know, patrol train or a ghost train up that's not even on the schedule, just to check out the lines.
Your community is working to reestablish the quiet zone here, and you're going to have quad gate systems so that you can get that back. And I know that you're all praying for the day when that happens.
Yeah, the horns work really well,
Yeah, I know.
know.
I stayed in the hotel on Everett Avenue one day and I went, I understand. I live a mile down a dirt road in the country where the deer and the antelope bloom.
So it's fair to say that regardless to what the handrails are doing, you really need to pay attention to the lights.
Always.
The lights
Absolutely.
supersede everything.
Always. So look for the no train horns, because sometimes there's not going to be one and it's all on you. However, just so you know this, the engineer has full discretion to blow the train horn if he or she feels that there is something that's imminently dangerous. And it can be a dog out there. I mean, who wants to hit a dog for no reason? Or a person walking their dog. Or whatever it is that they feel. Maybe there's anytime there's a railroad worker out there, they have to. They have to blow so that the railroad worker knows they're coming, okay? Even if it's a quiet zone. Believe me, Judy will start getting the calls I'm now getting when the train horn blows in a quiet zone, because people think it's a silent zone. It is not. The routine sounding of the train horn is silenced, but that does not mean that there will be no train horn. There can be any kind of an emergency. So we were talking about this before. When you see a plane's descending, it's just hanging there. Same thing with a train. The perception is that it's barely moving, when in fact it could be moving here, 79, 49, up to 110 miles an hour with Amtrak. And if you've never stood next to a 110 mile an hour train, it gets your attention really fast. First time that happened to me, I called my husband and I said, "Hon, we might want to increase my life insurance in this job." It really does get your attention. So we don't pass. We don't shift gears. Why don't we do that?
Not that many standards out here anymore.
No, there aren't, but there's a reason we don't. Rails are slippery, right? You don't want your vehicle to stall on the tracks, and we don't stop on the tracks, right? It's illegal to do that.
And if you do get stuck in between the arms, they're made to break away.
Yes.
So just drive through it, honestly.
It's going to leave a dent in your
Replace
car that's
that,
better
it
than
cannot
dead, right?
replace you, so just drive right through the arm, go forward, backwards, get out of harm's way.
Yeah. And always know front and rear, right? What's your containment space? How long is your vehicle? A lot of truck drivers make that mistake. Bus drivers make that mistake. You know, if you're over the track by this much, you're involved in a very serious crash, right? So even if your vehicle is over the track by this much, right? Tow truck drivers, we teach them in what's called traffic incident management. People forget about tow truck drivers because they go out to work and they're too close to the rails. It happened in a town near here where the tow truck driver got hit because it's too close to the track. He didn't realize he was in the foul. Because trains overhang.
We actually had
The
an
rails.
incident just today where a bucket loader was clearing the right-of-way for a public utility down in New Jersey, and he saw the train coming, he thought he was clear, he was too close, it hit his bucket and sent him spinning, and unfortunately he was injured, thank God.
Yeah, it's happened where we've had fatalities in the last couple of years, and these are people that are trained to know. So even, they forget that when you're overhanging the rail, you're still following the track. Just because you're up in the air doesn't, you know, a train is very tall, so. And there are things that can hang off, like a freight train, like a lumber car, for instance, has those metal straps. Well, if those are hanging and they go along the ballast rock, they're getting sharper and sharper and sharper as they go along. They're just like a sharp knife, right? So if you're standing there, yep, something really bad is going to happen. So stand back. Make sure you're not overdriving your headlights. This happens all the time, doesn't it? Where we can't really see what's in front of us. We're going too fast for our eyes to be able to see what's in front of us. This used to happen a lot before these strips got put on rail cars, on flat cars. People would run right into the side of the flat car. Do you think the train operator knows you're out there and hooked under the train? I don't feel a thing. So they don't even know that you're back there. And proportionally, there are more of those sorts of incidents. The train doesn't hit you, you run into the train, believe it or not. When do you think most incidents occur?
Daytime?
You would think, wouldn't you? Well, yeah. Nighttime you would think, but it's daytime. And it's usually very close to your home with lights and gates at the crossing. You would think it would be at passive crossings at dark, but it's not.
Do you find it's just people distracted or just eager to get home?
Very distracted these days, yes. They're on their phones, they're putting on their makeup. I mean, you've seen it all. I saw a guy reading a book in the 90s. Literal, on the steering wheel, reading a book. So, yeah, people are very distracted today. So, watch for advanced warning signs and just be alert, be aware, do what you're doing, drive. We don't need to multitask while we're driving. And always expect a train on any track in either direction, always.
Every time.
We all do this, not necessarily alcohol, but we're all distracted, we're all tired, doing whatever we're doing. So try to give, when driving, give it your full attention if you can. And I know in Massachusetts, traffic is backed up all the time, and you feel like you can get other things done while you're sitting there in traffic. But when you're approaching railroad crossings, please be careful, be alert, know what you're doing there. Obey all the signs and announcements in the train station. Stand back. Don't get yourself on that tactile and down inside. And never go down into the train tracks in the city. Bad things happen there. You guys can read, so I'm going to let you do that. And always help kids, because mind the gap. And sometimes it's bigger in places. Always mind the gap. We're going to blast through these, because it's getting late and you guys don't want to listen to me anymore. So we stay off, we stay away, and we stay safe. Trespassing on railroad tracks is dangerous and it's illegal. It's private property. Many people say, well, the state owns that. I'm a taxpayer, that's mine. Actually, no, it's leased to a company, and it is not yours. And you think this doesn't, you think it doesn't happen, but it happens everywhere, as Judy and I just said today. We see this constantly. We see kids out there taking selfies. We see ATVs out there. They damage switch points and cause havoc with trains. Snowmobiles. We've got videos of snowmobiles getting caught up in the switch points and then the train coming along. And snowmobiles aren't cheap anymore. What are they, $10, $15, $20,000? They give them back in pieces when the train hits them. Same with ATVs. So stay off, stay away, and stay safe.
And if, for the police department, if you guys are ever pursuing someone through the city, because we know it's a very busy city, make sure you notify the railroad, just because you may not be near the tracks now, but your pursuit may take you near the tracks, and if you give them a heads up, they can reduce the train speeds, and they can be on alert, so that they won't necessarily stop the trains, but at least they can be on alert. So if something's going on, or even if there's a fire near the tracks, you have to lay hoses down or something like that, notify the train station, the railroad, because they can actually bring some equipment out to run your hoses underneath the rail if you need to, and different things like that, so that they're not, because if a train comes over your hose, it's going to be a very short hose, and too long hoses, it's not going to win. So yeah, just keep them in the loop, let them know, and then they can adjust accordingly.
So, you know, grandpas always used to say, let's go out and put a penny on the track and see what it does. Those can fly back at you with the same velocity as a bullet. So, even though it seems like a real fun thing to do, it can kill you. So, we were having, for a while in Massachusetts, they were putting those strips that you put in a nail gun along the rail. I know. Strange things happen out here. They're made for trains. They are not made for people. There is nowhere for you to be in there, okay? You are trespassing on a tunnel, a bridge, a trestle. It's designed for a train. It's not a good thing, huh? Where's he going to end up? You never know if a train is going to move. That can be a half mile down and you can't even see the engine hooking up. That will cause that child to fall in between the rails. Kids, believe it or not, try to take their bikes underneath. What's going to happen with this kid with the straps? Right? But they oftentimes try to get around. Doing okay on time? Yep.
Okay, well, 5 minutes.
Okay. Dangerous and illegal, right? We don't want this to happen. That steel is very, very, very hard. You don't want to land on it. But unfortunately, all these things happen every day. Every 3 hours, 8 to 9 people a day in the U.S. lose their lives. Right? School buses, they have to stop back at the white line. They have to look both ways. They've got such precious cargo in there. We don't want to see them get themselves in a situation where they encounter a train. If they do, they have to evacuate out the back to us. You're getting the full stack here, but we just wanted you to see what we have for presentations. We've had many times when we've gotten calls about school buses and something happened, and we'll go into the bus company and do a full-on presentation for all the drivers.
So should we open it up to some questions now?
Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone, if you're interested in becoming an Operation Lifesaver volunteer, you can reach out to myself or Norma. We're happy to
Can I ask what region do you cover, like for a volunteer, like do you have a specific region?
Really, it's entirely up to you. Okay, so what happens is, I used to be president of Operation Lifesaver in Massachusetts. So we have a bunch of volunteers. When events come up, we put it out to all of the volunteers, and just like you sign up with whatever.
Sorry, Judy.
She's always trying to step up.
I'm trying to get through just so that you can see the different.
Yeah, so really, it's your own discretion, whatever works for you with your schedule and location.
Do you see that, like, area police departments have someone assigned that, even if it's just for, so you all don't have to come out, but one of my officers comes out every school season? I mean, is that something that's...
We would love for that to happen, and prior to COVID, we had a lot of that. Since COVID, it's been really hard to ramp people back up to thinking in that line.
We'll talk about, I think it's important. We had several, I've been here for a long time, a lot of fatalities, cars stuck on tracks from a snowstorm, getting hit. Even myself, working near the FBI building, I backed doing traffic through the gates. I knew the gates, I could hear it. And someone grabbed me, because I did not hear the train. I was still probably 15, but I could hear the swoosh, and I didn't hear it at all. I was just concentrating, blocking traffic, letting people cross, and my momentum for some reason backed me up into the gate area, and someone just, like a pedestrian, just said, like, pull me back slightly. But that's when I finally said, you do not hear that train coming. I did not hear it at all.
You think it's so big, you won't hear it, right?
No,
But now you don't.
and that was right on Everett Ave, right, in the main trains crossing.
Thank God someone was alert.
Yeah, I mean, I was still far enough away, but just my momentum, I was just directing, and I kind of backed into the gate area, and I just did not hear the train at all.
We find that a lot with people on their cell phones, you know, even public officials or whatever, they're over there talking and they don't
For the record,
realize.
I didn't have my cell phone on.
Yeah.
No earbuds.
I'm just going through them, so he's catching them on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I find that, well, this is probably as close to one of those scared straight videos from the 80s when they cracked the egg in the frying pan. So it's very, very impactful.
I wish we had all the kids in town.
I have not, proudly. I feel like, yeah, no, well, I mean, I feel like message received, and I feel like
It looks very delicious.
what you're trying to accomplish as far as not so much scaring people into reality, but
It's prevention.
yeah,
Yeah,
so,
Exactly. We want to get ahead
No,
of it.
just know, you know, and I think a lot of it is that these kids don't know. And they see people do it all the time, successfully, thank goodness it's successfully, but they need to know and understand the risk that that behavior is to them, you know, and I think if parents know that risk, that they'll educate their kids not to. I think we find when we come into communities and we do this, we don't see fatalities for a while. And that's what we're trying
I'm
to
wondering if
prevent.
this is something that should be done like at the beginning of the school year, and
Yes.
then at the end of the school year, as
Yes.
kids is going to be out for summertime, right?
Absolutely.
So like you're warning them at the beginning of the school year.
I think it's even seasonal, winter, or that's when they're hooded up.
You might
Oh, yeah,
have more
they
things
can.
on
Those
the
rails are
years,
slippery. Yeah.
maybe quarterly,
Yeah.
I don't know, kind
I
of.
mean, I would
rotate.
definitely have, most likely when you start to reach out and see how the training is. Not for you to do it, I'd have someone else.
The school resource officers,
Is it best,
to-
yeah, we have
it
four.
is, it's the best bet. They're in the school already, and sometimes there are times when things are going on at school, they can't go outside, it's too cold, or it's raining or something. They could do an
Yeah.
Operation Lifesaver presentation,
Like
they show a
like
video.
assemblies, convocation, they have events where they're gathered.
Mhm.
So that would be like a good time to like throw a presenter in, you know what I'm saying?
And it
Or-
doesn't have to be the whole, like, it could be like a 5
No, it
to
doesn't
10
have to be the
minute
full.
thing. That's
There
part
are-
of
there
a
are
longer program.
Limited versions of this
Like a
for the
reminder.
age. And there's a great driver ed one for kids who are starting to drive. With the whole physics of a crash, how their bodies are continuing to move at whatever the car was going, and how that, you know, impacts.
And Operation Lifesaver has a train the trainer program.
Oh, awesome.
That you can
Yes.
actually send someone down there, I think they're having it in Nashville next
I'll
month.
go.
Yeah. And then they can just train all the resource officers.
No,
Road trip.
Really?
The coaches, which I am one, will be going to a training in November to get up to date on the newer slides that we have. There just hadn't been a chance since they got them out there, and they really wanted to get the new slides out, just so that it was refreshed and a little bit better. And you can see in the brochures, the green one is the old style, and then the one with all the color is the newer style. And we're trying to, you know, get everything updated as quickly as we can.
Chief, I'd be happy to work with you to get that into the summer camps as well.
No.
Oh, absolutely.
My last question, do you ever have like young mentors, like kids who are in high school that teach the class, at least locally?
We would
It
try
would
to
be
recruit
great.
them. Yeah, we were trying to recruit them at the high school,
Great idea,
actually.
Chief.
Some of the kids that were more interested in what we had.
Kids listen to
our
kids.
message.
We all have to do community service, this is like a great community service.
I'd love to introduce you to the Boys and Girls Club of Chelsea as well, because they have a large number of students and parents. So this might be a nice opportunity for you to present to them as well. And it'll just kind of be repetitive, right? You're not only getting it at school, but now you're getting it through Charlie's program, through the parks and recreations in the city, and then maybe other.
You have to have an
after-school
entree with them, to get in, because they have so much going. So it'd be great if you could do that.
Absolutely,
to
it'd be
assist
my
with
honor.
that.
They would be great at their quarterly breakfast, like the one we.
They just sent the one
I
out.
know the one,
for
but
next
I was
month.
just thinking because of that.
I
they would
might
be
make an
great.
introduction and maybe have you guys come out and maybe be a speaker at one of their breakfast series.
And they wouldn't see every slide that you saw, and they wouldn't see it as, like that original film that we sent. I mean, that's really not appropriate for their age level.
So it would be two things. It's a two-part with the Boys and Girls Club. So you have supporters and sponsors. They have a community breakfast just for adults. And then then it would be a separate audience for the children. So it would be probably two separate presentations. They'd be two different because you have a completely different audience.
Right, and that's, we stress that as coaches, know your audience.
Yeah, the breakfast is more business owners, community stakeholders. And then the other would just be after-school training for the kids.
We don't talk about real incidents for a reason. I mean, you could have the cousin of the person who just passed away in the front of your audience. So we talk in generalities, unless we're FRA hat on.
Well, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I want to thank everyone for being here this evening. Thank you, ladies. Thank you so much for this. I feel like it was very informative. I want to thank just the participants from City Hall, as always, the Chelsea Police Department. Special thank you to Sergeant Star Chung for the introduction. And as always, Director of Emergency Services here supporting us. So try to make our community outreach meetings. We try to make them as informative as possible. We appreciate your support, and we anticipate the next one to be in the last week of October. Thank you very much.